happening, we were like, this is a really great reason for us to keep doing this and to do it well. And so we actually also train people as legal observers for the Colorado Rapid Response Network, which is a separate thing. Those legal observers also can be called on to join us. Let's see. The attorneys, just to echo some of the things that Harriet said, our primary goal is to accompany people, offer them emotional support. Our secondary goal is to demonstrate to the court that these people have support. It's not nefarious, but my additional goal is that people become more aware of how the U.S. government treats people in this country and become enraged by it and want to change it. Also, I just wanted to share that attorneys often will appreciate our presence. That's really nice too.
Yeah, it seems there's also a component of support for family members many times too.
Yeah,
We'll get, okay.
yeah, thank you.
All right, so what we do is we provide emotional support for individuals and families. Do you want to share a little bit about Lupe?
Yeah, so some of the people we accompany to court, we don't know, but others we do know, because we've worked with them for a while, and either way is fine and either way is rewarding. But one of the, I think, most powerful experiences I ever had was accompanying a woman whose husband was the person in the courtroom at the moment. Their cases ended up becoming combined. And it was really, and we'll go through the different types of courts, but it was really more an administrative getting things set up. But the fear that families have in this experience is really extreme. And this woman grabbed my hand to pray. And for me, that was one of the most powerful examples of faith I have ever experienced in my life. And it still resonates with me. Sometimes family members, because they are undocumented, are not able to enter the courtroom. And we had one family in particular, this woman's husband was at GEO, the hearings were over at the GEO courtroom, and the first time she was able to wait outside for a couple of hours sitting in her car. And then when we got outside, we told her what happened, which was an extension of the hearing. And the second time, she had just started a new job. She wasn't able to be present. And I had the sad task of having to call her and tell her that her husband was being deported. She thanked me because she knew that we were there for him, that he was aware that people were there who knew the family, and that meant so much to them. Sometimes too, before a hearing, people may request a prayer vigil or some other group. When we go through how you sign up, you'll see, we'll say how many people are being requested to do the accompaniment. And sometimes we'll say we'd like a lot of people because there will be some kind of a vigil outside the courtroom before it starts. Sometimes you're also asked to help with the family members, as in small children who might be there accompanying. And at the federal courthouse downtown, there's a waiting room. They have some toys and games and things. So I guess we say we take our ego out of this. We do what is needed for the families, and that's the thing that's most important. And whatever we do, I can tell you, it is greatly appreciated.
Yeah, so court accompaniment puts folks like us in direct contact with immigrants and the systems acting upon their lives. It's a way to demonstrate to our leaders that there are a lot of people who think about them and want to know what's going on. It helps them fight fear, hopelessness, depression. There's a way to become more and more, it's also a way to become more and more enraged about what's going on. But it also is a way for us to stay involved with a particular particular family or group and kind of stay updated on what's going on for them. It also is, court accompaniment can be really difficult. So it's healthy to process your experience with other people in our group, with one of us as staff people, or with your friends and families. If you do get very enraged by how our US government treats people, and then you start to talk about it with your friend group, then we have, more people who want to see change. We'll do a kind of a quick overview about how it works. So the first one is a welcome email that you'll get. This is something that I usually send out. And it's, contact information, it's, our landing page, some guidelines, which we have for you all, contact information for other people on the team. So, let's say Kathy wants to reach out to Harriet to say, I'm gonna pick this person up, and then we'll meet you there, so she might wanna have Harriet's phone number. A link to our reporting form, which we'll show you in a minute, and a link to our Sign Up Genius calendar. So this is an email I'll send out to folks, and that as a welcome, and then you'll secondarily get a request or email. So the next slide. So this is what a request for accompaniment would look like. Sometimes I write a little bit more, a little bit less, but I'll say, hello team, we have this request. This particular person, has her appointment, for her U visa application at this time, this date, at this location. And then I'll try to mention if someone speaks English or doesn't speak English. And then I'll include a link to the Sign Up Genius so you can sign up to be her accompanier. Often this request will be made at the last minute. We provide fairly bare bones information, but a lot of times people learn about court accompaniment when they're starting to get nervous, and that means their court date is coming up, right? So then their lawyers will say, well, have you called the FSC to ask for accompaniment? And they'll be like, no, I'll go do it now. Sometimes we get these requests a couple of weeks out, but more often than not, we get these requests a couple of days out, just so you know.
Okay, so the information that we do try to collect for the accompaniment is the name of the individual or individuals who are being taken to court or going to court. And you'll notice, particularly with all the Spanish-speaking folks, the names could be very long. And that is important to make sure you have that all written down or stuck into your phone calendar so that you can identify them when you get to the court. If they are a person who already has their A number, that is important. That's required at the courts, not for ICE check-ins. Their phone number, which is important, the languages that they speak. And I know a couple of people in introducing themselves, made a point of saying I do or do not speak Spanish. Don't worry about it. Speak Spanish? Great. If you don't, there's always Google Translate, and they have it too. So that's okay. If the person is being represented by an attorney or a firm, we'll include that information, where the accompaniment is going to take place, and we'll review the sites where we do accompaniment, the time, the type of hearing, the purpose. Is it a check-in? Is it a master court calendar hearing or their final hearing? And as I mentioned before, the number of accompaniers who are being requested will be included. And then if there are any special requirements or pieces of information, we will let you know about that.
Sometimes people from Fort Morgan are like, can I have a ride? Sometimes also people in the Denver area can request a ride. We'll do the best we can, but we don't expect people to have access to a car in order to do court accompaniment. Pat Buckley exclusively rides his bike everywhere. Great court accompaniment. So.
Yeah, right. And also, if people need help, particularly if you're in the close in Denver metro area, helping them figure out how to use the bus system.
So sometimes you'll know the person that we'll be doing court accompaniment with. It might be Fabiola, who you've also gone to speak with Senator Bennett with or something. But sometimes you won't know that person, and we can try to help you get a description of them or a picture or something like that. But also we haven't done this lately, but we could start redoing it, is we used to have these little pins that you could wear with a white ribbon, and so we could say to our, friend that we're accompanying, just look for the woman at the white pen, you know.
Wayne was sharing a good tip in the chat that Google Translate has if you just go to Google and then say Google Translate, you can actually talk into the phone in English and it will say it back in Spanish to the person. And a lot of the people we accompany, especially new folks, know how to use that already. So if you don't speak Spanish and you say Google to them, they may pull it up on their own phone for you. So.
Thanks, Wayne, that's a great tip.
This may sound a little bit self-explanatory, but it's worth saying. You want to introduce yourself to the person you're accompanying, but please try not to take offense if they are very preoccupied with their case. Sometimes we've had people say, great, it's nice to see you. Can you watch my kids? I really need to have this conversation with my lawyer right now. And I'm nervous about it. That's gotta be okay. That's gotta be okay for us. Many times we don't know the details of their case or the background, but that's not really the purpose of us being there. It's okay. Someone there might know more, the lawyer or maybe a legal aid. And if they have the ability to share that information with you, they might. Sometimes what happens is the lawyer will just share information once the case is done, once it's over. It's not super important for you to know that stuff anyway. Yeah.
Okay, and please remember that we are not there as a legal assistant or an advocate. Lawyers often modify things for their clients at court anyway, and we're not there to interpret their actions. We are there to be with the people. So when we enter the courtroom with the individual or family, we try to sit with them or nearby as space is available. Many of our recent court accompaniment have been to the initial master calendar hearing, which is sort of setting things up for their case, making sure that they have all the forms that they're supposed to have, and setting a court date, which at this point could be years in the future. That is something that sort of changed, I've noticed the last couple of times when I've been at federal court, both in the lobby where you're probably going to meet up with the family. It has been as crowded as DIA is 2 days before Christmas. It's literally the lines sort of snake through. That's why I'm sort of finding a way to meet up. If you could exchange photos, even that would be a good idea. So the last couple of times, we haven't been able as accompaniers to go into the courtroom with folks because there are so many people there at the same time doing the same thing. So once the person's called, it's a fairly quick process, but they have tons and tons of people there. Sometimes because of this type of hearing, and there's so many people waiting, you need to be prepared to wait. Sometimes for a very long time, depending upon the type of hearing. That case may be one of many that's being considered. And we try to keep people in the loop with our texts or Facebook to the extent possible as we go through this process.
Okay, we're just gonna cover some courtroom etiquette real fast. Then maybe we'll be able to do a little less talking at you and do a quick thing. So courtroom etiquette. So arrive on time or early if possible. Morning sessions usually begin around 8:30 a.m. And afternoon sessions usually start around 1 o'clock. So the request will usually say 8:30 or 1. At the federal court, people can sign in and go upstairs at around 8 o'clock. Courtrooms are typically no phone zones. There is an immigration court at the Geo Detention Center, and in that case, you cannot even take your phone into the building. You have to leave it in your car. But at the federal courthouse downtown, you can take it in with you, you're just not supposed to pull it out. Do not chat or whisper amongst yourselves as much as possible. Sometimes you need to, and that's understandable, but use your best judgment and try not to be chatty. You're not actually supposed to read or sleep. And they do ask you not to react to rulings or the verdict. Again, very difficult to do sometimes when you find something to be very unjust, but I'm supposed to do that. We're also not supposed to wear any shirts or clothing or pins or things with messaging on. So similar to if you're gonna testify at the state legislature. Let's do this one real fast, okay?
Can you bring something to write with and like a pad of paper?
Yes,
Yes.
you can, absolutely,
Yes.
thank you.
Yes.
You can bring a pad of paper, you can bring, a pencil or a pen.
Yeah, and you might not really want to make a whole lot of notes, excepting for, at the end, like particularly after the master calendar hearing, when the person is being given their next court assignment. We hope that you will take down that information of what court they'll be in, what the date is, and what the time will be. Because as you're gonna find out, we're going to ask you to fill out a form and provide that information to us.
I'm trying to say if we should do that section now or should we? Yeah, okay. So, sometimes you'll have more than one person doing accompaniment. So let's say Kathy and I are going together to do it. We're gonna decide among us which one of us is going to fill out the follow-up form. And I'll do a little ask type. This is what the court accompaniment records looks like. And it's a Google form that will show up on your phone. I can text it to you easily. But you basically fill out the form with the details of what happened during your time together, and the outcome and the next steps. So if they have a new court date, or you can say, there's a way to report that. Piper, if you click in the, notes section of the slide, there's actually a link to the actual record. You can scroll. So, sometimes it will be necessary to have one of you follow up with a family member, like Harriet mentioned earlier. So you'll figure that out together. Kathy and I would discuss it, and report and put that in the reporting form also.
Well, then I'm gonna reshare if you want me to scroll down.
Thank you,
Mhm.
my tech savvy friend.
Are these all internal documents?
Mhm. Yeah, so, the only people who have access to the back end of this is myself and Piper. So if you can feel comfortable putting someone's A number in there and some small details
But
about.
this doesn't go to the court or anything?
Oh, no.
And in fact, this is regular stuff that's fairly easy. If you click on location, these are the most, common locations where we do court accompaniment. I put in a bunch of other ones like Denver County Traffic Court. We very rarely go there. The most common is Federal Immigration Court and the, immigration court at the Geo Detention Facility, or sometimes the check-in, an ICE check-in. So get out of there, paper, please. And then judges. So there is a group of students at the DU School of Law who is collecting information on judges. And if people have had positive interactions with them or negative interactions with them. So, we have all of the judges here listed and you can select which judge it is. In the past, there was a judge that was particularly, rude to people. And, the DU students took it upon themselves to write something about that and to share it, I believe, with the ethics board of immigration judges. That's kind of cool. The outcome, we try to make it easy. You're gonna just click it. We want you to be able to do this fairly easily so that you actually do it. And then the date for future accompaniment is under there. And the time, and the paper. Please add notes about the case. Some people will write like a paragraph and a half. That's fine. It can also be a sentence or two if you say, this situation has gone into it's been assigned a new court date, and that's kind of all we did. And that's okay. I'm good. Yeah. Do you want to do what we do not do?
Yes.
Do you wanna see if there's questions
Oh,
before we do that?
Yeah.
Any questions?
Online or in person, any questions about filling out this form?
Um, we can see the chat and everything.
Is this a form that we fill out on our phone, or can we work on it on a laptop and send it to you electronically that?
Sure, you can do it either way, whatever is more comfortable for you. You don't need to do it right at the courtroom. You can do it when you get home. That's fine.
Yeah, and usually when I send out a request for accompaniment, I'll put it at the bottom, this link to that form at the bottom of the email. So you can say, oh, okay, I was with Maria earlier today. I'm gonna search my Gmail for Maria's name. I'm gonna find that email from Jordan, and then there's the link right there. That's what I do.
Wayne said, I'm sorry to miss that, maybe I missed this, but can we take notes during the hearing? And I just said, you can, but on paper, not on your phone.
Exactly. Yeah,
You might be able to get away with an iPad that you write on, but maybe not.
yeah, yeah. I mean, there have been times when somebody has pulled a phone out and either one of the bailiff of court or this guy will ask you to put it away, or one time, judge stopped the hearing because the phone was out. And-
Mary, do you have a question?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I've had a hard time getting all this. I can see you all now, so I appreciate that. So obviously, when my people who don't even have court dates, they're literally just here for the last couple months. I can accompany them when the time comes, correct? And you guys will reach out by email to me, needing last minute support, so that if that's something I can do, I can show up and do that for you as well. Because
Mhm.
this is a long-term thing. And,
Yes.
Ideally, yes.
No, she means like their case.
Yes. Mhm. No, yeah, ideally it's not that long for them, but ideally you stay with us long term, yes.
And
Yeah.
I did not realize just coming into this that this was American Friends Service Committee, which is kind of full circle for me in a long way. So interesting. So thank you. And thank you for doing what you do.
Great, love to hear.
Igualmente.
And just so you know, when I send you your welcome email, a lot of these suggestions are in that email, so don't worry.
Yeah, and you can always ask questions if you are in doubt.
What is an A number?
And it's your alien number.
Alien.
Yeah.
Trying to figure out.
Yeah, everybody gets an alien number, ironically.
I had one question for folks like Mary who are connected to people at the shelter, and maybe she hears from them that they have a ICE check-in coming up and they want someone to go with them, because that's what your folks are mostly doing, having to do in the first year is those check-in. Do they email you, Jordan, or like, how do people who know folks who need a court date
Mhm.
communicate with us?
Yeah, so anyone can request court accompaniment, and typically they'll do that by emailing me, sometimes Piper. Sometimes we just catch wind of somebody who needs court accompaniment, and we'll reach out to them and say, can you give us the details of your date so that we can get you in there? But yeah, anyone can email me. I'm happy for you to actually hand out my email address to people who need court accompaniment.
So if the person like with the folks she's working with, they already know, they already said, oh, well, Mary said she would go with me. So they should tell you that when they get in touch with you.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. And then you've already got that in the system.
Mhm.
Right, and then if she wants other people there,
Right.
she can let Jordan know that.
Or if something happens at the last minute and the person can't go.
Mhm.
And there is many times when there's not an attorney present, is that correct?
Correct.
Yeah,
Most times.
right, right. And that's where the, particularly the master calendar hearings, they're not, most people are not represented by attorneys, at least at this point in time for those.
So two quick jargony things. One is, can you explain the difference between a master and a final one more time? Are you gonna cover that later?
Do you wanna do it?
Sure, the master calendar hearing, is the initial hearing in the courtroom where the person is being presented, their, situation is discussed, and they are told what documentation they need, if they need to have biometrics, et cetera. And if there are any particular, issues with their case, the court is aware of them and has that information of who they are and, you know, that they are trying to, let's say, seek asylum or legalization. And that is pretty administrative, I would say. And it is, as I mentioned earlier, it really doesn't take very long once they get called. It's making sure they know that they have, you know, the right documents and whether or not they have an attorney and when their next court will be. At this point, the final court date where their case is really being heard and the judge is really considering the issues that are particular to their case, that could at this point be years out. And the person then essentially exists in limbo, more or less, in that period of time. One of the things, one of the ones that I went to, maybe about 6 months ago, there was such a backlog of people that I referred to it not as the master calendar hearing, but the master address hearing. One of the things, and this is something as you are accompanying people, and particularly if you're with somebody and their court date's gonna be, you know, 2 years out, is to they have to make sure that the court always has their address. And that, because the court is going to, if there's any change in their situation or court date, the court is going to communicate with them by mail. And so there's a very, very important reason for them to know that and to make sure that they are always going to make sure that the court has their information. Because if they miss a date when they're supposed to show up, they're in big trouble.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I think, one of the things, someone I went to court with recently was joking about, we were joking about this would be the most boring thing on the face of the earth if it wasn't his own life, you know? He's like, I can't believe I was so nervous about coming to these first hearings because no decisions are made. And then there was a question, if there's an app they need to download before being assigned a person to accompany, or is it just through the Sign Up Genius? Can you walk through that one more time, Jordan?
There's no app.
Yay!
There is a Sign Up Genius, and the Sign Up Genius, they do ask you to create an account. So it's a web-based, it's a web-based program, website, where they ask you to make an account like Grubhub or something like that in order to sign up. However, I certainly have members of the team who do not like to use it. And they just call me or reply to my message and say, I'd like to go with Jose on the 30th, sign me up. And I will just put your name in there for you. That way, Kathy is like looking at her calendar. I'm picking on Kathy because I know her so well. Kathy will look at, you know, pull up the Sign Up Genius and say, oh, it looks like Pat is the one who doesn't like to sign up. Pat, and she'll be like, oh, it looks like Pat signed up. Oh, well, it looks like there's one more person needed. I'll go also. And so she can see that Pat has signed up, but I've actually done the signing up for Pat. That's fine. I don't mind.
Then there's just, go ahead, and I'll do one more from me.
Okay. I guess mine has to do with when you can talk and when you can't, because you were talking to your person, but I'm supposed to be chatty. So you meet them, say you meet them in front of the courthouse, and they don't have a lawyer, and they don't have kids. So once you enter, you've got your phone, either it's in your car if you can't even take it in, or it's in your pocket, turned off. You go in the front door, can you talk to them at that point?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so if you're at the federal courthouse, which is downtown on Stout Street, there's a rather large lobby, actually probably about as big as this room. And that's where I mentioned earlier that there's so many people now. If you can find some way to do some facial recognition before you get there, so that you don't have to go up to every person and ask, are you Martha? Which two of us did recently. While you're there, you can visit, because you probably are gonna say, let's say, the court really starts at 8:30, but they're saying be there at 8. And part of that is there's so many people they have to get in. So you're there at 7:45 and you find your person, and yes, you can visit with them. And then you sign in, just what time you arrived and what your name is, and then you have to go through security. And so the guards will tell you what take off your belt, don't have anything in your pockets, that sort of thing. And then you go upstairs, and the elevators are such that immigration courts are on the 3rd floor. And you push that you want 3 and you get in, and all the buttons have been pushed for you. The elevator is going to take you to the 3rd floor. You don't get to go anyplace else. And then when you go around the corner, there's a board with all the names of the people who have hearings that day and what courtroom they're in. That's why I mentioned earlier, make sure that you have the full name of your person and their A number. So hopefully, and this is at the federal court where you can have your phone, you have that information in your phone. And because you're just standing there trying to find.
So you and the person are doing that?
Yeah, you
Helping
and the
them to
person.
find the right place to be.
Yeah, and so there are 4 courtrooms, I think, or 5 courtrooms. So you go, and then, also as I mentioned, there's so many people now, you might not be able to go into the actual courtroom with them because there just isn't space for you, and so you just stand
So
outside.
you're standing outside, can you read your phone at that point?
Yes.
In the federal courtroom, yes, okay.
Yes, yeah,
Just not inside the room with
The
the
actual
judge,
room.
but in the hallway or in the waiting area.
yeah, so if it takes a long time because your person is gonna end up being, in an hour or 2, and you'd like to read your email or send a text to somebody, you may do that as long as you're in the hallway.
Okay, and in the hallway, you can chat with the person,
And you can,
and you probably won't get in the courtroom, but if you do, then that's when you're just gonna be sitting there and not. chatting.
right, yeah, and if your person's sort of towards the end, there, you may be able to go in and sit down with them.
So, 2 things, if you go in the courtroom with people, you want them to check in when there's like a wooden fence thing where the lawyers are and the judge and the clerks. And you want them to say, now, I'm here. So, because otherwise you will be there all day and they'll never call their name, and then you'll say, why didn't you call, Juanita's name? And they'll be like, cause Juanita didn't check in with us, cause it's intimidating to go up by, so what I do usually is walk with people up to the fence, make sure they get checked in, and then go, sit outside if they say there's not enough space.
Yeah.
And then there was one last question, which is, how important is it to have a lawyer at the first administrative hearing? I would say, especially for newcomers who don't have a work permit yet, who don't have a lot of income, always it's better to have a lawyer. But if you need to not have a lawyer, or you have limited money, I would wait until about 6 months before your final hearing, and then start looking for a lawyer so that they can be prepared for that final hearing. The lawyer you can't hire an immigration lawyer a week before your final hearing. You have to hire them several months out so they can build all the evidence needed in your case. So if people ask me, that's what I recommend. You're gonna need a lawyer for that final hearing, and you're gonna need to have the money and find them at least 6 months before that final hearing, so.
Yeah, and maybe one of the advantages of the process taking so long is it does give people the opportunity to hopefully find some work somehow and be able to find a lawyer, because they're very busy, this group of lawyers. So, okay, did you have another question?
So people going in for this first administrative hearing, Does the court provide translators?
Yeah, we'll go over the personnel of the courtroom and explain how that is happening now. Yes, Jane.
So if they don't have an attorney and they have a question that they decide they're gonna ask me, and it's something that I shouldn't answer, how do I let them know that that's not something I can do?
Just, yeah, you just say, I'm not an attorney, I'm sorry, I can't help. You might be able to refer them to Piper or Jordan for something, but, you know, and if it's somebody just wants an explanation of, you know, where am I supposed to go in 2 years? You know, you'll be coming back here, you know, so if it's, you know, just something that you have the information for, who knows what the question's going to be.
Right.
But if it's something where it's legal and it's outside your expertise, they understand that we're not lawyers, and it's a good thing to remind them, you know, if a question like that comes up. In fact, that's a perfect segue into the next section. Thank you. Is that we're not here to give legal advice, and we can't help in that regard. We might be able to refer them in some way to the avenues for which they can pursue. We have lists of attorneys or clinics that are being held that could be of benefit to people. But we're also not there to fix people's problems. And we're there to support them in taking control of their own lives and their own choices. And we must accept those even when we don't agree with them. We have a couple of examples. One time, and this was at traffic court, a woman had a fine to pay, and, you know, it sounded like a lot of money. There were a few of us there helping her, and it sounded like a lot of money. And one guy said, well, I can pay it. She didn't want that at all. You know, this is her life. She's responsible. It just happened to have been somebody who had been one of my English students, so I knew her. And she said to me, I knew that I might have to pay, and I haven't. And the fact that that might burden her later on in the month with food or rent, that wasn't our problem. That was hers, and she wanted that. More recently, there was a woman whom we accompanied, and she wanted to pursue asylum, but she doesn't have an attorney, really even have a strong case. She's just sort of dropped out of our recognition. I did try to follow up with her. A staff member in Fort Morgan tried to follow up with her, and she never responded. So that was her choice not to pursue it, and her court date, once again, an administrative hearing, but her court date went by, and she was supposed to have filed an application, and she didn't have it, so. And that was her choice, and that's sad for us, and that's where, you know, Jordan said, you know, sometimes these decisions that people make or situations that they find themselves in are really hard, and they're hard for us to understand, and we're like, we want to fix it, but we can't fix everything, unfortunately, and that is hard to accept, and that's the hardest thing about this work.
I think we could actually do different types of court personnel, different types of courts and accompanying sites and visits of the personnel too.
Can I,
Yeah.
are you gonna talk about accompanying minors, especially unaccompanied minors?
We weren't gonna cover that necessarily.
Okay,
We don't get a lot of requests.
Yeah,
I've gone with a couple,
I have too,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's not a lot, but
yeah.
every now and then.
the good news is that the Rocky Mountain Immigrant Advocacy Network has a youth court system. And so we will often recommend people go with them.
Yeah.
But sometimes we'll have parents that are part of our membership
Mhm.
to go with their kids. Yeah, Rocky Mountain Immigrant Advocacy Network is REMAIN. It's a snazzy acronym there, easy to remember. They're referred to as pro bono inside the detention center. So those of you who've done stuff with CASA, you may hear them referred to as pro bono. And they are working towards universal representation, legal representation for people inside the detention center. We haven't gotten there yet. But they take cases from people inside the detention center, and they take cases from people outside the detention center. They cannot take every case because not every case is incredibly winnable. So they farm out some cases to volunteer lawyers also.
Yeah, they get the easy cases. So they have staff and then they recruit attorneys who are able to assist them. They don't even have to have been trained as immigration attorneys originally.
So each court has different protocols. I know you said you had to go, Karen, it's totally fine.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Each court has different protocols, but generally the personnel is, a judge, a clerk, a bailiff, an interpreter. And then post-COVID, only the judge is a certain presence. The clerk may appear only when called by the judge. The bailiff may also only appear upon request. The interpreter is likely to be in the courtroom, but could appear on video. And in preliminary hearings, the government's attorney may also appear on video. I say this because typically the judge is here, the defense is here, and the prosecution is to the right.
When the interpreter has to be the person on video, it becomes very complicated because they assume it's Spanish. I was there once and there was an African family there and I don't really know what language they said. And the interpreter couldn't see the family. It was kind of crazy. Finally, the judge explained, we'll do this with another interpreter at a different time.
At the Geo Detention Center, you have to present your identification and you can't bring your phone in. We talked about that. You may bring your keys and your glasses, and paper and pencil. We talked about the Federal Immigration Court signing in the lobby. And I always have to remember to leave my knife in the car. There's other federal, county, and traffic courts, and generally you just go directly to the assignment court. They may have different protocols, but they may be similar to other courtrooms. In traffic court, interpreters are provided, but Spanish speakers are heard last. So what they do is they just take everybody who needs an interpreter and they just hold them to the very end, they let everybody else go first, and then they have all the Spanish speakers. At ICE check-ins, I don't wanna lie to you all. ICE check-ins are not technically court accompaniment, but they are a type of accompaniment that we do. So ICE check-ins is when somebody who's their case is kind of being continued, if their application is going through the application process, they have to show up to ICE and do a check-in. It has changed a lot in the years that we've done this. It used to be that I could go in with one of our members and be with her while she checks in with her literal deportation officer. And now, a lot of times, you could just, then it changed to, you could only go with them to the waiting room. You couldn't go with them to see their deportation officer. And now it's changed that you cannot even actually go into the waiting room unless you are a lawyer. So
Or perhaps a member of clergy.
absolutely, that's
Right,
true. So
yeah.
lucky Wayne can put a collar on,
Yes.
show up anyway.
Right.
Can we just put a call on?
It's
Well,
fine with me.
Yeah, just make sure it's lovely looking. And also, it used to be that, somebody would be told 10 o'clock is my time. So they'd go in to the building and be seen, probably be in and out within an hour. The last time I went, the couple was in there 3 hours, which was pretty crazy. The Centennial office is down sort of in an office park kind of area. It's a big building on one side of Kaylee. On the other side, there's a big parking lot, which is where we all park. And if somebody has requested, some kind of a vigil or prayer before it's being said, we'll gather there. There's a little lawn area. There's an office building that has very kindly offered us their bathrooms should you need it. So if you happen to be stuck there for 3 hours, it's nice to know where the bathroom is. So for that, if you're gonna go, you're going with a big group, you'll have people to talk to. If you're going by yourself, taking these people in, bring something to read, just in case. And Kathy, you had an experience, I think, down at ICE that was kind of unusual, if I recall.
I don't recall it, okay, recall what it was.
Okay, well, it wasn't the norm, so things like that could happen, you know, this is something where we have a sort of a set pattern for how things work, but you need to be prepared to roll with the punches. You just don't know. I don't, you and I were there at about the same time with different people, and I think mine was the 3-hour one, and I don't know, something happened with yours.
I will say though, since you may be thinking to yourself, wow, do I really have this kind of time? That is okay. If you are there, you send a couple in to go do their ICE check-in, or you send them into court, and you're like, I gotta go pick up the kids or whatever, you can leave, it's okay. We hope that you're able to communicate to the family or the person that you have to leave, but that is all right. And also, we have had people do accompaniment and say, you know, Harriet will be like, I can be there for the first hour and a half, and then I'm gonna need to head out. And maybe Kathy will say, I can be there for, after you leave, I can show up and make sure that you get back on the bus or whatever.
Yeah.
So that's okay. If you cannot be there for the entire time, no shade.
Yeah, I mean, remember what we started with. We're there as a physical presence to let them know that people in their community care about them, hope that they're successful. And just be there to hold a hand or give a hug or whatever. You'll find that you are going to probably do that at some point. And also then offer the message to the judge that, you know, people in the community care about them. And I think Jordan had mentioned this earlier about the attorneys, if the case has an attorney, the attorneys are very appreciative of our presence because it helps them send the message that this is important to the community. And they also know what it means for their clients to have that kind of emotional support.
Yeah, one thing I was gonna say, and I don't remember if it was this one or not, there was one where I ended up the person, and I was able to do it, it happened that day, take the person to, what was the place where they used to have to go to get the? Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't, maybe they didn't know it until the last minute, I can't remember, but I remember also going there. But the other part is that I've had a couple of times when after the hearing is over, people have asked me for a ride home, which is fine. I think some of the issue was they were embarrassed to ask earlier. It frankly would have been easier for me if I would have known earlier, because I could do it. But rather than think, okay, I'm gonna go from there and go straight home, you know, I'm gonna go from there and go and give them a ride home. But just to kind of feel it out and say, you know, and not like we're offering to provide transportation, but if there's a way people need it, to say so earlier, it's just easier to plan. And then otherwise at that point, you say yes or no. They ask for a ride home.
Yeah.
I'll share one more example of something that happened, and actually, this was Wayne and I. We showed up to the federal immigration court, and there was a young transgender woman in a facility in Arizona, and she's actually appearing in court, by video. So she was, on a screen, and had a little camera. And then Wayne and myself and one other person were there to do some court accompaniment for her. And the judge was very surprised. I was like, how do you even know about this case? But her lawyer had requested court accompaniment. So we went there and we sat there, and the judge actually had her camera turned towards the audience so that she could see that we were there. Which was kind of cool. And he didn't make us, but he asked us to introduce ourselves, and we said, hello, you know, I'm Jordan, I'm here to be a witness for this and accompany this young woman for her case. And then we sat through her asylum case, and the state's case was not very good. I don't think she did win the case. She won asylum that day. I don't think it was our fault that she won. I think she had a great lawyer. But Wayne and I were able to like say to her at the end, you know, and like wave to her and say, congratulations, you got asylum. This is great. You know, and she was like very appreciative. But it was a really interesting experience I think for me to notice that the judge noticed us.
Yeah.
And I was like, I think that can only be positive for her. So I don't know. You remember that, Wayne, but it was many years ago, pre-COVID.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there a suggested dress code?
You know, I usually try to wear something that buttons down, but there's no.
It's mostly don't message, but
Right,
you know, a nice top, I would often wear jeans, but you know, a nice top, you know,
so not business attire.
you don't have to be in business attire.
Would a clergy shirt be appropriate or not?
Absolutely.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
if you have one.
It does say a message, but
Oh,
not the
okay.
kind of message that you're referring to.
Should I wear my?
Yeah, if I always say, Nancy, if you got it, flaunt it. Any other questions or other? We kind of zipped through a lot, but we really want to hear from you, things that you think about, don't want to know, or want to know more about.
What is the majority of the cases? You said mentioned traffic court and ICE and, what is the majority of these?
Most of the time, it's showing up at federal immigration court for some stage of that person's
Okay.
case. A lot of time it's continuance, so if they're showing up just to say, I'm here, I showed up because I said I would show up, you know, and that gets continued, so that's a lot of the time.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, traffic court, or sometimes there's criminal court, but those are pretty rare. Yeah.
And there's a couple of questions from online about struggling to find attorneys for people and also, you know, recommendations for help with asylum paperwork. And if you would like, I can speak to both of those.
Please.
So in immigration court, there's no public defender system. So you don't get, if you can't afford an attorney, you don't get one. And that's why so many people don't have an attorney until the end. And about 85% of people are not able to get an attorney and to pay for one. The immigration bar, meaning the number of lawyers in Colorado who specialize in immigration, was small before we had all of our newcomers. And the number of those that specialized in asylum was like literally 3 attorneys in all of Colorado that did them regularly and really understand asylum proceedings. So there are more attorneys now who do asylum cases, but they're not able to take all the cases. And so one of the things that we have people do is call and say, are you taking new cases right now? If not, sorry, my Zoom account is being signed in.
Oh, that's me, sorry.
Oh, oops. Okay, so, we basically, are you taking new cases? If not, when do you think you'll start taking new cases? Those are both good, questions to ask. And then, in terms of filling out asylum paperwork, there are some clinics where people can go, if they live in the city and county of Denver, Catholic Charities will fill those out with them for free, and that will make sure that, we're not harming their case. I know that there's a lot of pressure from, that newcomers feel to file that asylum application because they can't ask for a work permit until 150 days after they file that asylum application. But, I really caution people against filling out the part of that application that is somebody's story or why are they afraid? Because those categories are really narrow and really complex, and what helps them get a work permit now may actually prejudice the court against their asylum case in the end. Meaning when they get to the end, they're gonna get ordered deported, possibly because of a mistake that you made on this application. They're not as straightforward as they look. I will share with the group after this a prep packet that's in Spanish that has the 10 pages of biographic questions that people have to fill out that are very complicated and hard for people to put together. It's a lot of timelines. And that piece I feel confident translating into English if I'm fluent, for people, and then they can fill out the last part, or they can take that to an immigration attorney or to Catholic Charities or another clinic. Yeah, so I empathize a lot with this question around how much to help with the paperwork. But I want for you to protect yourself from years down the road, having people come back and say that you ruined their life by filling out this paperwork, and to protect them, from assuming that I think a lot of times people assume if you're a citizen, and in particular if you're white, that you understand these systems and that that you know enough. And I think it's really important to say, I want you to be successful and I don't know enough. I mean, I've been doing this for 20 years and I wouldn't fill that out with someone on my own. I hope that helps. And I'll send the number for Catholic Charities and the number they can text to try to get into another asylum clinic, so that you guys can share those with people that you're accompanying. So they have a resource. You can, just say, I don't know. You can say, here's a number you can call.
What do you know about these clinics that DU is starting? The first one is this Friday, or a couple of months, and that's for asylum clinics. Do you know anything about it?
I know that DU's clinics tend to be pretty small, because it's one immigration attorney overseeing a bunch of students.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not sure, every organization already has a pipeline of people that are waiting, so getting someone into those is harder. Yeah.
There are questions or thoughts or?
How often will it be a solo person doing a accompaniment versus two or more?
It's a good question. Before COVID, we had most of the time 2 or 3 people going with each person that requested accompaniment, and now it's closer to 1 or 2. So more often it's 1 or 2.
And it depends on what the person wants. Like if it's their final hearing, they might want 3 or 4 people for moral support. But if it's like this first and they don't really know us, then they might just say, I just want 1 or 2 people.
Excuse me, so they're requesting more than one, or they're bringing friends?
No, they request more than,
Okay.
yeah.
But they also may bring a friend
Yeah.
with them. Yeah,
Family
so
members.
you're there as the accompanier, but they may have a family member, or like in the case of folks coming from Fort Morgan, a friend who can drive them, so they may have kids with them, but in terms of accompaniers, they are requesting, I would like 1 or 2 people. I think most of them say 2, but sometimes only 1 person can go, or if it's the final hearing, I'd like 5 or 6 people.
Yeah.
So I'm asking from the perspective, how do I get used? Get, the first time for me was scary.
Yeah, absolutely.
Tell Jordan.
Just let me know and I can say, let's see if we can find somebody who's done it a couple of times or many years or whatever.
Yeah,
To go with you for the first time, absolutely.
thank you for asking that question.
Very doable.
Yeah, we wouldn't want to, scare you away from this.
Yeah, one of us can go if none of these guys can.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So for these families, I have a family that has a daughter that's 10 and she's deaf. So they're seeking asylum. So we're talking a couple years at least for their journey, correct?
Yeah, probably at least.
Okay. I mean, I don't think they had a clue. They made it. They're here. Faking it every day. I mean, but bottom line, they're going to need an attorney. And I am familiar with Remain. I've worked with them in the past a little bit through a different organization, but I don't want them to feel like this is going to be anything other than another long journey like they've been on.
Yeah, I think I put my email in the chat, Mary. And if you wanna email me, I would be happy to talk with you a little bit more about this particular family.
And
And
there's 5 more that don't have a deaf daughter, but they all have their stories, right?
right. Yeah,
So-
it's a lot. We have like a whole other hour training on like all of the things of how all the agencies and the process that people are going through and when they're might be eligible for a work permit.
Cool.
I don't wanna get into that tonight. That was 10 minutes left. But I'd be happy to talk with you more about this family and, I'm gonna put, I don't know if they're already connected with El Grupo Vida, but they work, specifically with Latino and immigrant families who have a member of their family who has a disability or special need.
Can
And
you
they're
tell me the name again?
It's El Grupo Vida, and if you email me, I'll send it back to you too, but they're a great resource for, they don't do legal help, but they are a great resource for helping get other types of support for kids and families that have special needs or disability. And they're very culturally competent. They're almost all immigrants themselves, the staff, so. It's a
Okay, and do you have access to my email then?
If you registered, I do, but if you do me the favor to email me, that would be great. It's just jpiper@afsc.org.
J Piper, Piper?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, cool. All right, I will do that and thank you. Thank you much.
Thank you. Thank you for
Okay.
all you're doing to help me people.
Trying.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot right now.
It is a lot. And all I can say is it's one foot in front of the other. That's all we can do. So
That's right.
day, minute by minute. But thank you. This was really informative. So I got to jump off, but I will email you and thank you.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Thanks so much.
All
Is
right.
that
Ciao.
ready to close out?
Yeah, I was gonna say, unless anyone has any other questions or comments,
Where's everybody from?
many people that I see that I know up there are Denver oriented.
Oh, Denver or Aurora? Oh,
Yeah.
okay, because the one woman said that she was in Grand.
Oh, she really lives in Denver.
Okay.
She's just hanging out in the mountains.
Yeah, Wayne is in Aurora. I know Wayne.
Okay.
Cool. Well, thank you all so much for being here.
Yeah, thank
We have a
you.
few minutes left of your
Yeah.
evening.
Right, and if you, for those in the room, we have what, more snacks, we have them. Yeah, and if you have any questions coming up, or, you know, if it is your first time and you see you're the only person signed up, please let us know.
I saw you sent a couple of emails a week or so ago. Have those all been taken care of? Are they still?
Good question.
open to
Yeah, maybe we'll find you a spot right now. No. I'm kidding.
Let's see, Cassie, what a good question.
Good night, everybody. Thank you for joining us online.
Adios, adios.
If you have any feedback for how this hybrid experience was and you have a second, put that in the chat for me. That would be lovely. If there's anything we need to improve when we're doing these meetings that are both in person and online, or things you like that we did, let us know, because this is
You were
the first time we've done this.
Yeah, thank you, Jen. I mean, and Jordan, this was the first time anybody's talked about how we might do the court stuff. So thank you. Could you stay on just a minute? Because I'm trying to figure out my Saturday.
Yeah.
Why don't I just call you?
You gonna call me? Yeah. Can you call me in my cell?
Yep. I'll
Okay.
call you on your cell.
Okay. Thank you.
I want to say thank you to all of you as well, because there's communities here that are so involved and I'm so impressed with it. And it's just made my heart so warm for those of us who have tried to sponsor, for lack of a better term, so many families. It's nice to start getting better information, because we get to the point where we get them housed, we might help them get some work, And then this asylum side, you know, I mean, honestly, I hear the word ICE and I'm afraid to walk in the office. So it's all of that you just, to your point, I'm not going to touch their paperwork. But I also hear such horrible stories of, you know, how many are denied if you can't get a lawyer, and if I can't find a lawyer. And so it's just all that process that I really appreciate your help with. Yeah.
I really wanted to connect with you, Linda, about it.
Yep.
Not just you, but like other folks that you're working with, because we've felt very like, as a small organization with just 2 staff, like we haven't been able to be out there giving lots of food and doing all the things as staff. And we've just been watching you all in awe and like waiting for the moment that we can get that information into your hands. So I'm so excited you're here and I'm so excited to connect with you.
Could you get me in touch with her?
Yes.
I would love to help more.
Yeah.
Okay.
I've been trying to get
Yeah,
more involved.
I'll send out how to do that.
Thank you very much.
Is she one?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, well, I got your information, but I got in late because I was just scrolling through, because each Facebook page has a lot of great information, and I saw your clinic a little too late, so I was like 30 minutes late. But if we keep doing that on all of the Facebook pages, because they're really organizing that well, you guys, your conversations really help, because truly the clinics aren't quite doing it. So I appreciate you guys.
Yeah. We
Thank you.
appreciate you too. Have a good night, everyone.
All right, thank you. Good night.
Thanks.